Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today I've got 3 really easy scrap wood builds for you. Each one of these costs less than $5 in scrap wood to make and less than 60 minutes. Before we dive right into it, please take a second, hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications because I got more videos just like this coming up. Let's go. First up, we've got a pot holder, or some of you fancier folks could call it a trivet. Trivet. I'm not really sure the exact pronunciation, but it is a pot holder and it's designed to put hot things on to save your countertop from heat damage. But when done right, they can also be a pretty decorative piece. I want to make this one with a kind of interlocking design, so it's not so ordinary and stands out a bit. And actually, it takes a lot less material this way as well, just a little more work. So I'm going to start by setting up my table saw to make a square piece. I'm going to make this one 7 inches by 7 inches. I don't need that much material, but it's easier to handle when it's not so tiny, so I might actually be able to make 2 out of this as well. Then I'm going to mark out my piece, just for a better visual, so when I set up my router to make my dados, I don't mess it up. And for every 1 inch, I'm going to make a 1/2 inch channel, so I'm just going to follow that pattern across the whole piece. By laying it all out, it also makes it easier to check your measurements and use it to set up your router fence. I'm using a 1/2 inch straight cut bit, and I got the depth set to just a little less than halfway through this 3/4 inch thick board. And with the fence set, I can actually use this twice by flipping the board around and cutting the opposite groove, so you really only need to adjust the fence twice for this whole project. Then I'm going to set my saw up to cut the 1/2 inch strips that are going to interlock to these grooves. And I'm going to use a piece of plywood or just another piece of scrap just to make a test cut first and make sure I got a nice fit before I go cut up my walnut. And once I'm happy with the fit, I'm going to go ahead and rip my 4 pieces of 1/2 inch walnut. Now I've got to take my piece of maple with the grooves in it and cut 4 strips of that. Now I chose to make mine just a bit wider than the 1/2 inch, so I adjusted my feather board, but you can just leave everything where it is and have all 8 pieces being 1/2 inch thick. I just kind of like the contrast of a little thicker colored piece versus the thinner walnut. Now you're ready for the glue up, but you're not going to glue all 8 pieces at once. I mean, you can, but I find it a lot easier just to concentrate on getting a nice square pattern, so I'm going to use my 4 walnut pieces, but I'm only going to use 2 of the maple on the outside. Just dealing with the 2 loose bottom pieces as opposed to 4 is a lot easier. I'll just apply a little weight to it until the glue stiffens up. About a 1/2 hour is usually good, so I just use this time to kind of tidy up around the shop, and then I'll come back and put the other 2 pieces on. Then I give everything a real good hand sanding with 220 and apply a nice clear coat to brighten everything up. And I do recommend multiple thin passes with this. There's just so many nooks and crannies in this that you don't want a bunch of drips to have to clean up. And just like that, for pennies of scrap wood that likely would have just been tossed out after being moved around multiple times, you've now got a beautiful trivet. Next up is a key and envelope holder. And for this piece, all I need is actually less than 3 feet of pine shelving. I've got a bunch of this left over from one of my previous videos, so I'm going to try to utilize that. I'm going to start at my miter saw and cut 3 different lengths of this shelving. I need 2 at 12 inches long and 1 at 11 inches and 1/4, since that's the same width as this piece. At my table saw, I'm going to take one of the 12 inch long pieces and I'm going to cut 3 strips at 3 inches wide. Then I'm going to take the piece I cut at 11 inches and 1/4 long, and I'm going to rip down 4 pieces at 1.5 inches wide. I'm going to take 2 of my 3-inch pieces I ripped back over to the miter saw, and I'm going to put a 45-degree angle on my saw and just take off one of the corners on each of the pieces. Before I assemble everything, I'm going to go ahead and sand it. It's just way easier than trying to get in all those nooks and crannies once it's all put together. To put everything together, I'm going to use a combination of wood glue and an 18 gauge nailer. And I'm going to start with the pieces that I put the 45-degree angle on one of the corners. These are the two outside pieces. I then grabbed my third and final piece of 3-inch wide by 12-inch long wood. And I actually had to cut that down to 9 3/4 inches long so it would fit nice and snug between these two uprights. Then I put a little glue on it and threw a couple pin nails in. For the front slats, I just very carefully put the first one on so it was nice and flush with the bottom piece I just installed. Then I used a scrap piece of the pine shelving and used it as a 3/4 inch spacer so that all the slats were spaced evenly. I used a little putty to fill in all the nail holes. And just like with everything you build for the wall, you've got to decide how you're going to mount it. And I'm a big fan of keyhole slots, so I just mark out where I want mine, head over to the router table, and put a couple slots in there. I go over everything once more with the palm sander, making sure I get all that putty off, and I'm ready for staining. While I'm up there staining this, it's your perfect opportunity to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications for more videos just like this. Gone are the days where you're constantly searching for your car keys and your mail. Ta-da! And for the final project, this just might be the easiest one, it's certainly my favorite. It is a candle sleeve. I didn't really want to call it a candle holder because this really just does go right over top of some candles or any other kind of light you might have. I'm going to start by ripping down my pine, and I'm going to rip it with a 45-degree angle on each side of it. Now, depending on what kind of candle or light you're going to use, you're going to have to take some measurements and figure out what yours fits. In my case, I need to have the center to be 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And overall, I need my sleeve to be 8 inches high to completely cover the candle. So I'm going to head over to my miter station and cut 4 pieces at 8 inches. And again, I'll get as much sanding as I can out of the way before I glue everything together. And to glue this up, I'm going to use the old tried and true masking tape method. I absolutely love this for gluing up small miters. It just saves you fumbling around with the bigger clamps and constantly adjusting to get a nice tight miter. If you've never done this, you got to give it a shot. It just works perfectly. I was skeptical the first time, thinking that maybe there wasn't enough clamping pressure, but I mean the glue does all the work here, so you really just got to lay your tape on, line up your miter joints, and then put some glue in between it. Once you fold it over, you do have an opportunity to kind of tighten everything up if you see a gap here and there, so it's very easy to do. And once it's all dry, I'm going to grab my router and round over all the corners. Definitely not necessary, just something I prefer the look of. I want my slots to be 2 inches apart. So on 2 of the 4 sides, I'm going to mark that at 7 inches, 5, 3, and 1. And then on the other 2 sides, I'm going to mark it at 6, 4, and 2. I set my saw blade to a height of 1 inch and start making my cuts. I set my fence up for the first cut, which is 7 inches, and I do both sides before moving my fence in 1 more inch and doing the 2 opposite sides. And then I just repeat this all the way down to the final inch. And now all that's left to do is a nice coat of stain. And this takes a little bit of patience with all these little narrow cuts in there. You can see down to my right I cut a smaller sponge just for that purpose, and it does help. But it is still a bit of a pain, so just take your time, throw some music on, and enjoy. That was a really quick, easy build that turned out just beautiful, And as you can see, you got the option to make these into sets or different sizes, whatever you want. They look good pretty much anywhere. Thank you all for watching. Your support really means a lot to a small channel like mine, and if you haven't already, please take a second and hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you can stay notified when I drop new videos just like this coming up in the future. You're going to enjoy them. I hope you enjoy them. If you don't enjoy them, pretend you enjoy them. I'm sensitive. Till next time.